get yourself together before it's too late.
Good afternoon. And that's right. We're saying afternoon to all of our Divided We Stand members on YouTube and Facebook. If you're unfamiliar with this, this is Divided We Stand. We have a YouTube channel. We ask that you subscribe. We don't ask for anything. We are not a monetized channel. And if you are not a member or have a subscription to YouTube, we ask that you become a member to Divided We Stand on Facebook. You can find us there through group pages. There may be a few other Divided We Stands out there as there are on YouTube, but you'll find us. We're a political group. We commiserate. We are in the thinking that it is untenable negotiating with the Republican Party, and you can look for yourself. Today is our inaugural recorded version of Divided We Stand. This is Divided We Stand in the afternoon. It's a verse for us. So at this point in time, I'd like to introduce my co-host, my good friend, journalist, educator, podcaster, writer, pretty much everything. He's not a dilettante either. He knows what he's talking about, and that would be our Dave Price. Dave, how are you doing?
Hey, Brian. Hot down here in Washington, D.C. I suppose it's hot up where you are, hot on the East Coast.
I don't know. I was just out there. I don't know the exact temp. I'll look for it, but I imagine it's got to be in the 90s right now.
Yeah, it is. And but that's not the only thing hot going on. We have a whole number of hot issues, and in this midweek, what we're going to do as people know who are familiar with our weekend show, we tackle all kinds of things. But this is going to be, each of these will be devoted to one topic. And we've chosen what I consider to be one of the most important topics out there today, the Supreme Court, and what the hell can we do about it?
Right.
So, Brian, why don't you start? What do you see as problems at the Supreme Court, or problems with justices, or what's your take on this, where the Supreme Court stands today?
Well, first of all, in my mind, there's no doubt that the Supreme Court, at least 2/3 of the Supreme Court, has become a political organization. It's become an arm of the Republican Party. It does the Republican Party's dirty work. It does the dirty work for the evangelicals. It does it for the fossil fuel industries. It really, really has a goal in mind. And this, you can trace this back to the Federalist Society. You might say that there's corporate influence. But whatever it is not a traditional Supreme Court. And unfortunately, we're on the minority end of that court. So being an arm of the Republican Party, they basically can put the handcuffs on us. No matter what we win or where we're going with any issue, no matter what the populace thinks, the voice of the populace, it won't matter. They hold the key, and there's not much you can do when you have the judge and the prosecutor sitting in the same seat. That's what I think of them.
Yeah. Now, most of our listeners and listeners/viewers, pretty political savvy, but just for anybody, just a brief thing that I think we should talk about a little bit is, how does one get to be a Supreme Court justice? Well, basically, you're nominated by the President of the United States. And so obviously, you are either, if the president happens to be a Democrat, you probably have Democratic leanings. If the president is Republican, you have Republican leanings. But there's a check on that, just like we have a system of check and balances, and it must be approved by the Senate. But again, if the Senate if it's controlled by Republicans, a Republican judge gets an automatic attaboy or attagirl, and in they go. But if it's a Democrat and it's a Republican Senate, it could be held up, as Mitch McConnell did with Barack Obama had a chance for an appointment, and McConnell just ran the clock out. Now, one of the problems that I see with the Supreme Court, and again, is that 5 of the members, I believe, I know 3, and I think 5 of the members were actually appointed by a president who did not win the popular vote. Mm-hmm. So automatically there's a disconnect. Again, it's not illegal because the president has the power, the Senate has the power to confirm or deny. So my take on the court, I break it down a little bit. There are 9 justices. 3 are liberal Democrats, And by liberal, I mean not some. They're not out there with the Occupy movement or that kind of thing. They just believe basically that the Supreme Court should rule according to the law, taking into account the common good, taking into account all types of things. Well, the six Republicans come from a different venue, if you will, or different bent. First of all, the head of the Supreme Court is not the justice who served the longest. It's not the justice who is picked by the court. Sometimes, 8 justices would say, we want such and such. That is also a presidential appointment, specifically for that position when it opens up. And currently, it is a Republican, John Roberts. Now, I've said on our show numerous times, and I still believe this, Roberts can only go so far. He's a conservative. There's no question about that. But he can only go so far because if something is completely ludicrous, he doesn't want it to go down as the Roberts Court stamp decision. And that's what it'll be. Everybody will refer to this. Nobody will know Alito or Thomas in 100 years, but they'll still know the Roberts Court. That's what it'll be identified for. So Roberts is kind of, I don't want to say an unknown figure, but is there. Now, the problem is, even if he does decide to vote with the 3 liberal judges, they still go down 5-4. So let's look at the 5 remaining. You have 3 were appointed by Donald Trump, and that alone should be enough to frighten anyone.
Right.
Donald Trump is going to be in the news now for a long, long time. But when he was in the White House, he was able to appoint 3 of the justices. One, Justice Kavanaugh, there were hearings held on that, and I believe personally that he demonstrated character unbecoming judge before he ever sat down. He was too angry. He was too emotional. There were allegations of things he had done when he was young, and of course that's a hard thing, Brian. I mean, let's be honest. There are things I did in my youth